We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Looks like the rain has gone.
G'day and welcome to the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove that there's more than just one way to be a man. I'm your host, Brandon Clift, and today we are joined by author Martin Rutte to talk about 3 simple questions that could completely change the way that you think about your place in the world. Now, Martin Rutte, co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul at the Workplace and the leader of a new movement that's sweeping the globe right now called Project Heaven on Earth, is touching the lives of thousands of people from all places and walks of life. Now, his mission is to create a new model of existence, right? A new collective purpose for ourselves so that we can get past all the minutiae of the what and the how of how we can create a better world for ourselves and the generations to come and get back to the why. Now, it's interesting, Martin went to politicians in his home island, I guess, of Prince Edward Island, and asked all these politicians who are, on the outset, diametrically opposed politically, these same 3 questions. And what was quite remarkable, and once you hear these questions, makes a lot of sense, is that although these politicians are opposed on so many different things, they actually all want the same thing. They're just getting caught on how to get there. So it's my belief that this time spent with Martin is going to give you, it's going to give me, it's going to give all of us an opportunity to approach the question, what does heaven on earth look like for you? Not for me, not for your dad or your mum, not for your church, but what does it look like for you? And guess what? You don't even have to be religious to ask the question. Enjoy. So Martin, mate, take a moment to tell us about yourself, your work, and what's alive in you in this phase of life.
Brandon, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm, management consultant. I have worked on vision with some very large companies, Sony Pictures, Southern California Edison, Virgin Records. I'm co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work, which is a New York Times business bestseller. We've sold over 1 million copies in 15 languages. What else? I am in love with my wife.
Always good.
Always good. I love Mankind. I grew up in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, which is a steel city, like Pittsburgh, very polluted, and where grand visions were never part of life. And so I've really dedicated my life to helping you discover and create beyond what you believe possible. And my new work, as we will talk about in this interview, is Heaven on Earth.
Fantastic, Martin. Thanks for checking in, mate. So the book in question we're talking about, so for those that are seeing us live, is Project Heaven on Earth, 3 simple questions that will help you change the world easily. Now,
did we do it? I don't know if I did that when we did the initial article. Did you read the title the other way?
I don't know. I guess they'll just have to go by my word on that one, especially those listening.
So you can read it as Project Heaven on Earth. You can also read it as Project Heaven on Earth.
Well, there you
go.
So
the same word project is both a noun, we're working on this project together, and it's also a verb about your being, you're projecting heaven on earth.
Oh, well, mate, it's a good thing you're here to make that distinction. So it went right over my head. I like that.
No, I know. It locks in once people see it.
Yeah. And so the foreword is done by Jack Canfield. You've got comments from authors like Don Miguel Ruiz and Gay Hendricks, who his book, The Big Leap, has had a huge impact on my life. So I was very eager to get stuck into this and discuss some of the ideas in there. So, mate, give us kind of a bird's eye view of what you mean by project heaven on earth.
So a little also about my background, that I've also did a lot of work on spirituality and work. I was one of the first people to bring that topic, spirituality and work, up into the world. And I was doing a keynote address in Santa Fe at a conference there on spirituality and work. And I was just ready to go on. So I was off by myself, just meditating. And I thought, look, if every business in the world is spiritual, whatever that means for the moment, but if every business is spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no, because if we could transform business, because business has such power in the world, if we could transform business, we could transform the world. So then this thought pops into my mind, oh, you mean heaven on earth? And my first thought was, whoa, you can't say that. People think you're proselytizing, you're a fundamentalist. I don't even know what I was saying, but just, you can't say that. And then I really started to think about that. And I said, well, wait a minute. I can talk to you about hell on earth, can I? Hell on earth is a permissible conversation. The pandemic, the environment, the threat, God forbid, of nuclear war. I can talk about that. Why can't we talk about heaven on earth? And so that began this inquiry, Brandon. Like, what is it? I didn't even know what I meant. I honestly didn't know what it was. And I just started going around to people saying, what's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? What's heaven on earth for you? And after interviewing hundreds and hundreds of people, it became very clear that there's a pattern, there's a lay of the land. And that's what the book is about. And so the 3 questions form the basis of the book. And then there are what I call 7 gateways, that these patterns that kept coming up over and over and over as people told me what heaven on earth is for them. So that's how it started and how I got into it. And I knew when I heard the phrase heaven on earth, I knew this was the next phase of my life.
Mate, before we get onto those 3 questions, because I would love to explore those. A clarifying question is: you speak heaven on earth. Do you mean in a religious sense, or is this more just like the perception for the individual?
I do and I don't. Let me unpack that. So I don't want to define heaven on earth, because this is not about me imposing a particular definition of heaven on earth. You'll see in the 3 questions that really the questions are designed to evoke heaven on earth. So for some people of faith, of religion, yes, heaven here on earth. For those people who are spiritual, who are not religious, they can still do heaven on earth. So I'm not, what I'm interested in is, does it have resonance for you? Does it have meaning for you? And to unlock that, evoke that, that's useful for me.
Okay. So for the agnostic or the atheist that's listening, this isn't about subscribing to a particular idea of heaven and earth. It's really about, through the 3 questions, is creating your own idea of what heaven can represent for you.
Here,
correct?
Yes, here on earth.
Here.
And yes, and the first part of your question I think is really relevant. This is not about subscribing to my definition. In fact, I do not give a definition purposefully, because I don't want people to be, I agree with Martin or I disagree with Martin. I want people to look for themselves within themselves and find their own answer. That has, to me, always been both respectful of people and I found the most useful. Once you discover what heaven and earth is for you, you're off to the races.
I like that distinguishment, because it makes it more inclusive. And so let's get into the 3 questions here. What's question number 1? And in fact, I'm happy to be a case study in this.
Good.
If you want to explore.
So I would like your listeners and your viewers to do this as we go along. So Brandon will answer the questions, but I'm going to do them very slowly so that you can have time to really sink into what they are. And the 3 questions, just before I give them to you, the 3 questions came out of asking people over and over and over and over again, what's heaven on earth? What's heaven on earth? The 3 questions also are on my website, projectheavenonearth.com. So you don't have to remember them, just remember your answers. Okay, question 1. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
I was in Peru. I was in a place called Iquitos in the Amazon. And I had just come out of a ceremony, an ayahuasca ceremony. And during that experience, it was the first time in my life I ever like palpably, like tangibly felt self-love for myself. There's been nothing more pure than that, other than staring into the eyes of the woman I love.
Very clear. Very clear. Second question. Imagine you have a magic wand. If you have a pen or pencil with you now, you can even hold that up to make it more tangible. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with this wand, you can have heaven on earth. What is heaven on earth for you?
Heaven on earth for me, and this seems bold and oftentimes unreachable. Heaven on earth for me is the ability to live in a world where I, as a person, see and acknowledge the differences in others, and they acknowledge and see the differences in me, and that's okay. That there's a link between me and the African-American man, me and the Muslim woman, that is just a shared human experience. And it's that connection that's seen, not the differences, as far as pointing out what's wrong within those differences. So haven't really got the eloquent summary of that, but that's the gist of it.
Very clear. Yep, very clear. And then the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to have more of that heaven on earth? What simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to have more of that heaven on earth?
Yeah, I've got one. What first springs to mind is to call my friend Paul Newell, who's a member of the work. He's been on a couple of conversations here, African-American man. Call him to ask him and just hear from where he's at in life, from his experiences, and just seek understanding and to learn from him.
And will making that call be consciously for you part of your co-creating heaven on earth?
Well, it's a step in the right direction.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm asking you if you would hold it in that context.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
For sure.
All right.
Like if to zoom out from it and see it from
Yeah.
that kind of third-party view, yeah, absolutely.
Good. All right, let's go through them one by one.
Mm-hmm.
Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on? What you
Kitos.
did is Kitos.
Yeah.
Very simply, the experience of self-love, unlike I've ever had it before, except looking into my lover's eyes. What you didn't do, and what no one does, is ask, what do you mean by heaven on earth, Martin? Nobody asks that question. How do you know what I'm talking about? I didn't define it, but you did, didn't you? You went right to it. Everybody goes right to it. It's because I believe that inside of you is a place called the already knowing, or else you couldn't have answered the question. You went right to it, bang. Everybody goes right to it, bang. When my child was born, eating a good meal, whatever the content is, but you go right to it. That astounded me when I got it. Without definition, okay? That's one. So there has been one or more previous experiences of heaven on earth in your life. Second question, recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on? Excuse me, imagine you have a magic wand and with it you can have heaven on earth. What was going on? Now the reason for the magic wand is to remove the necessity of having to know how. You don't have to know how it's going to happen because that's the magic wand's job. Oh, well, if I don't have to know how it's going to happen, I can purely focus on the what. I can go deeply into the what, more deeply than I've ever done before. And you did, bang, and people do. And for you, it was to see the differences and have that be okay, to link with people, to connect with people. That's heaven on earth for you, very clearly, by your definition. And then the third question, I don't want to just leave it at the second question and have you know what heaven on earth, have heaven on earth be present into your awareness. I want to actually have you do something. And that something has to be simple, easy, and concrete. And you said, I'm going to call Paul. So that action of calling Paul with the consciousness that this is my direct contribution to heaven on earth, and that heaven on earth is linking, seeing the differences, having that being okay and connection. Of course, the call to Paul would be in that context. I mean, listen to what you said and listen to what you're going to do. So those three questions: A, you have had an experience of heaven on earth. B, you do know what it is. And C, you can begin taking a simple, easy, concrete step in the next 24 hours to begin to make that real. So let me stop there and see, because then I want to take it to another level.
Well, you know what I love about these questions is, number one, although these questions from the outset, magic wands and heaven on earth, may seem a bit woo-woo or esoteric or a bit out there, it's directly applicable. Like, it allows me to get out of the way of what I want, because it's natural for me to go, well, there's a bold goal, have everyone in the world love each other. Gosh, how's that going to happen? And become flooded with the overwhelm of, gosh, how on earth is that even going to happen? But what I can do is create it for me, not for the whole world. Create it for me first by taking an action step, which the doer inside of me, as I beat my chest, loves that.
Yeah.
There's tangible action involved. And no wonder you've been able to have these conversations with giant companies of people that I, from the outset, judge to be very focused on a lot of doing and probably don't stop to think about these questions all that often. So,
but they are now. Because of what I call the existential, the threats to humanity, the threats of a pandemic, the threats of the environment, the threats of, God forbid, a nuclear war.
Okay.
Those are life as we know it ending threats. And so I'm thinking that, or I'm feeling and thinking, the time now is coming for, wait a minute, I don't want that to be our story. I want this to be our story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's impossible. We've never done it. Okay, well, what if we took a little step?
Yeah.
And what will happen, Brandon, and you went right into it, by taking that little step, by calling and speaking with Paul, which seems like an inconsequential step, but it isn't, because most people say, oh, well, I can't change the world. I can't end hunger. I can't end poverty.
So why bother?
Or I don't know how, or we've never had it. I have a whole chapter in the book about all the misbeliefs about, well, we can't have it. We've never done it. It's impossible. Who am I? Blah, 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 blah. And as long as we buy that, then that becomes the story. Our story, which is humanity is, well, yeah, we get some heaven on earth, but it's not going to work. I mean, we know that. As opposed to saying, no, if you assume your responsibility, man, woman, transgender, I don't care. If you assume your responsibility of co-creating heaven on earth, whatever that means to you, and I'll give you some examples in a moment, that's your contribution, we start shifting. And let me tell you one way that I do know that this is making an impact, not just me, thousands of others who are engaged. If you go to Google and put in quotes, heaven on earth, and then 2020, and then heaven on earth in quotes, and then 2021. Now, I did that a couple of days ago, so it depends on when you're listening to this or viewing this. A couple of days ago, it was about 4.3 million for 2020 and 13 million for 2021. 3 times and we're only a couple of months into the year. So something is going on under the surface. Something is going on deep within culture, in which culture is saying, I don't want this game anymore. I want a new game. I want, in essence, here's the real thing. I want to create the new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity. And you create a new story by saying so, by declaring.
Yeah.
That when I started Heaven on Earth, you're nuts, you can't do it, it's never been done, And I went, but that's all reasons why we can't do it or we haven't done it. But I look at somebody starving, or look at somebody in poverty. That's much more important to me than you can't do it. Yeah.
Well, the Wright brothers were the first to, for man to create manned flight.
I read about them. Do you know what they did for a living? They were
Bicycle.
mechanics.
Yeah.
That's right. When they flew, they went to the literature, the scientific literature at the time. Everything.
Yeah.
Well, this is what an airplane could be and should be. Blah blah. It was all wrong. When they did the Kitty Hawk, the first flight, they had a little hook at the back of the plane, and there was a wire on the ground. And when that hook hit the wire, it triggered a camera, and they took the first picture of manned flight, and it changed the world. And after they did that, they went to the newspapers and said, "We did it, we did it." No, you didn't. The Farmer's Almanac was the only publication that printed the story. Even in the face of that new reality, look at this picture. Nah, false.
Yeah. Wow. Well, let's quickly speak to that old story, the new story, by framing it with what's been the old story of the world, and then we'll get into the next exercise that you were mentioning, like taking it to the next level as far as the 3 questions. So you say in your preface of the book, we've heard it many times that the old story isn't working. Disease, wars, poverty, and other sufferings continue and continue. What we need is a new story. But notice that no one ever says what the new story is. It's never named.
Correct. That is so powerful. So 5, 10, 15 years ago, you kept hearing this. We need a new story. The current story is not working. The current story is not working. We need a new story. But nobody named the new story. So if I said to you, Brandon, our relationship, it's not working. We need a new relationship. We need a new relationship. Brandon, it's not working. After a while, you go, either Martin, let's create the new story of our relationship, or shut up. So I'm saying, as my contribution, here's the name of the new story: Project Heaven on Earth. We are co-creating and experiencing heaven on earth. That's what we're doing. And if this resonates with you, just say, okay, I'm in. That's the membership fee.
Yeah. I like that. Well, mate, let's go further. Let's continue the discovery
Some examples.
Process. Yeah, some examples, and then I'm selfishly very excited to see where we can take these 3 questions that you mentioned, that higher.
Well, no, the higher level is that once the 3 questions are in place for you, I'm asking you to start asking others those questions.
Oh, okay.
And then what you'll start to see is what I call the gateway. So in the book, there are 7 gateways. Heaven on earth internal. For some people, heaven on earth is inside. The more heaven on earth in here, the more it shows up in the world.
A feeling versus an external representation.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Others, it's a value. My wife is joy. You walk into a room, or my wife walks into a room, you are going to feel joy. Bang. That's her global value. Or relationship. My relationship with you is not working. It's a hell on earth relationship. What do I need to do to clean that up? External. Some people are saying, no, you got to have heaven on earth out there. What about hunger? What about poverty? What about war? We got to clean that crap up, that evil up. Fine. That's their gateway. Or a gateway can be an institution. What if law, government, politics, what if their purpose was to help co-create heaven on earth? What would they be doing? Or a nation. We have people in the world that, when I talk about examples, who have said, my nation is a heaven on earth nation. And then heaven on earth this here now. That this is heaven on earth. And our belief that it's not is what keeps us from experiences. If we could just stop, Brandon, right now and watch. Just stop and just let the experience of heaven on earth come in right now. Got it? It's there.
Yeah, it's those seemingly insignificant moments that go unchecked or
unacknowledged, unrecognized.
Unacknowledged. Thank you. Yeah, and since we've been having this conversation, we had our discovery conversation about a week ago, I've been noticing those little things, that just those tiny little things that bring so much more joy to my life. Now that I'm not watching the news anymore, and it's opening a lot more space. And since answering these questions, it's opening more opportunity for that to come in.
Exactly.
My idea of heaven and earth to come in, which I love, because these aren't the questions that my pastor growing up in church were asking me. They were saying, no, this is heaven on earth that you have to subscribe to and follow to and behave this way to have it. This gives me so much more freedom now to figure that out for myself.
And to be creative and to make your powerful contribution that only you can make. Exactly.
Wow. So what's an example of this that you've seen since you've been asking these questions? What are some examples that you can share with us that you've seen like tangible change occur?
Yeah. Let me go through from the hyper simple to the hyper, I don't know the word, big. So
Yeah,
there was
sure.
a woman in Hawaii, Susan Alima Fryer, who grew microgreens. And she taught people how to grow microgreens. And I was leading a webinar. She was in that. Well, I can't do anything. I can't make a difference in heaven on earth. What do you do? Well, I grow microgreens. Okay. What's heaven on earth for you? And she started speaking, and it was so beautiful. In essence, what she was saying is, this is my contribution to the Garden of Eden. And I'm like, wow. She took that definition and embedded it in her emails. She did it once. Every email that goes out has her definition. Actually, no, it's the other way around. She asked the second question. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you? And then she says, here's what it is for me. Simple, elegant. A police officer in Texas who's written a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement. Brilliant. A real estate agent who has created the thing that really, the suffering that bothered her in the world, homelessness, obviously. What are you going to do about it, Brenda? She started a program called A Home for Everyone. The small agency, she asked each of the 10 agents, would you be willing, when you sell a home or business, a building rather, to contribute $100 of your commission check to a pot? They all said, sure, up to $1,200 a year. Last I spoke to her, she'd raised $400,000. The program is called A Home for Everyone. Oof. And every year she asks for individuals and groups in the community to put in a proposal for money to do that.
Wow.
We go up then to this, doing another webinar on Heaven on Earth, and this woman really mad. I'll tell you what, I'll tell you about a suffering in the world. Violence against women. I've been to the police. I've been to the government. Nothing. What would you do? And I said, well, Susan, I don't know your financial situation. You could donate $5,000. You could donate a penny. Well, what difference would a penny make? One of the other women on the phone call said, hey, wait a minute. What if everybody in your community donated a penny a day to help end violence against women? She went, oh my God. Brandon, she created a program in which she handed out a little mason jar with a picture of a woman, half her face beaten up, bruised, half her face bright, alive, with the light shining out. And the program was called, get this, Making Change. She asked people to donate a penny a day or more for a year. You couldn't donate $3.65 and say, okay, that's it for the year. No. A penny, a penny, a penny, a penny, a penny. She did that in her county, the county next door. They raised $2,500. They took that, was in Canada. They took that to the government of Canada, who has a group called Status of Women, who gave them $100,000 for each of the subsequent 3 years. We go to a woman in Austria, Elizabeth, and we were doing a webinar, and she said, I'll tell you my project, Martin. I said, okay, what is it? Because I'm asking people to come up with their own Heaven on Earth project. Yeah. And she said, Austria is a Heaven on Earth nation. And I went, what? Why do you say that? And she said, well, because it's simple. She's been to the president. She's taken my book to the president. She's enrolled a local monastery to do a Heaven on Earth evening where they hand out little magic wands and ask people in German, you know, what's heaven on earth for you? She's enrolled the priest at her church to do a sermon on heaven on earth. This woman is a ninja. And then we go up to Charles Chore, originally from the African country of Gabon. I was doing a webinar and he said, you know, I've been bugged by my continent for years. I want to do something for my continent. He's come up with a program called Africa, a Heaven on Earth continent. And he has a Facebook group. We just did an interview last week in French and English, which was amazing for me. My French is good, but not great. And he's putting that reality out to people all around the world, not only in Africa. Africa, a Heaven on Earth nation, a continent rather. So I have no idea what the creativity that will emerge when you get what Heaven on Earth is for you. It's like think of a piece of software. You download it, you boot it up, and so the software says to you, okay, here's a new possibility. Here's new opportunities that you've never thought of before, but I need your content to make it work. And that's what this is metaphorically. Project Heaven on Earth is a context saying, you know, the dream you have for your life, for your work, for your nation, for the world, it's time.
That's cool. And what I love about it more than anything is it's so easy for me to get stuck in the how, like how are we going to make this happen? But by starting first with what and the why, like what is it that we want to achieve and why is it important? I think are the more important questions that need to be asked. And from my experience, just kind of entertaining these questions is the how figures itself out.
Yes, that's most people think how is the first question. I need to know how I'm going to do this, and then I can tell you what I can do. No, that only tells you the what's that you already know the how to. We've never done heaven on earth. I don't know the how. You don't know the how,
Yeah.
but we can take this step. You can call Paul today. That's one of the hows.
Yeah.
And we'll look back and go, oh, that's how we did it.
Yeah. Very cool, mate. Whew. Well, mate, let me ask you the question that disappeared from my brain. I guess I can't ask it now because I'm just kind of letting this.
All right, here's my question. What's the question that just disappeared from your brain?
That's a great question. Let me throw it back with another.
All right.
Mate, look, let's tie a bow on this because I feel full. I really feel full from this. I feel like I'm ready to make that phone call to Paul. Mate, how can people get involved with this? I mean, outside of just listening to this interview or sharing this interview, how can people get involved with Project Heaven on Earth?
First of all, thank you for the interview. Thank you for the fullness. That's a lovely, lovely phrase. A couple of things. So one is, here's the book, Project Heaven on Earth on Amazon. I want to ask you to buy 3 copies, not 1. I know that's bold, and here's why. Buy one for you. It's a really a blueprint of how to co-create heaven on earth. So there's stories, there's gateways, there's inspirational quotes, there's lots of examples, so that by the time you finish the book, you will know what your project is. That's simple for you to do. It has to be simple or you won't do it. It's got to be simple. Then you'll start, which is what I want. The second book is for somebody in your life right now that you know needs this book. And I'd like you to take a second and think, who is that person? Who's the person that needs this book now? Good. And then the third question, a third book rather, somebody's going to come into your life soon that this book will be perfect for, and you'll have it ready. So the 3 books, go to Amazon, order them. Also go to my website, Project Heaven on Earth. You can sign up for my free course there, plus a weekly blog. The weekly blog is really powerful because every week you'll get like a different facet of the diamond called Heaven on Earth. And I never know what I'm going to be talking about, but when something strikes me as, oh, this person is really doing something amazing, or directly, this person is doing this. I'm going to be interviewing somebody, a woman in a couple of weeks, next week, who wrote a song called Heaven on Earth. And I just found out about her, a longing for heaven on earth, a beautiful song. So buy 3 copies of the book, go to Project Heaven on Earth, sign up, and become a heaven maker. That's really the fundamental request here. Become a heaven maker.
Beautiful stuff, Martin. Beautiful stuff. I've just posted some links in the comments for those that have joined us live. And for those that are listening this a bit later on the podcast, I'll make sure those are in the show notes as well, so you can follow those up. Martin, before we go, mate, what's your heaven on earth?
Give me a second to think about that, because I don't have like, this is heaven on earth. A couple of things come to mind. One is raspberries. I love raspberries. They're heaven on earth for me. One is when my wife snuggles me. She's taken to snuggling me lately, which I go berserk with. I just love it.
Fantastic.
And for me, heaven on earth is you and our world getting that we can create this new story of what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity. That's heaven on earth for me. The more people who get this and who live from this, we're actually we're rediscovering our agency. We're discovering the greatness of humanity. I want humanity to feel that it is great, and the time has come. The time clearly has come.
Fantastic. Raspberries. I agree. Snuggling. Yes, that too. So, well, there you have it, guys. Another fantastic interview here on the Mankind Podcast. Thank you guys so much who have joined us live. A couple shout outs for those that have been contributing. We've got William, we've got Nina, we've got Andrew, just to name a few. Thank you guys so much for being here live. And for those of you listening to this at a later date, this has been another episode of the Mankind Podcast where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove that there's more than just one way to be a man. I want to thank all of you out there that are contributing to whatever your heaven on earth is. Martin, thank you so much, mate. And we will see you guys very soon. This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. I have been your host, Brandon Clift, and I personally want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. And of course, I want to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you make it a heck of a lot easier for us to let men out there in the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. Special thanks, of course, goes to my incredible team, Marketing and Communications Director Boyson Hodgson, producer and editor of this episode, Michael Russo, who makes me sound so much more intelligent than I actually am, so of course, special kudos goes there. And if you've been enjoying the music throughout this episode and all of our episodes, check out Jim, Donovan, and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So my friend, pick up the pen and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.